I'm going to talk about a doozy in this episode. Please get ready, sit down. I'm going to talk about the BS of manifestations and how it sometimes creates spiritual psychosis. Don't know what that means? I'll break it down to you in layman terms. Let me just get ready because it's going to be a mouthful and I'm going to go for you, so you don't even have to press and hold to speed up this video. And I will have kids in the background, so I apologize in advance. You might be seeing me be in mom mode, but I think this is very important for you guys to learn. And as a priestess and a realistic spiritualist, this is one of the things that really angered me about manifestation and the people and the coaches and all the spam shit that you receive out there. Download my ebook, Manifest Your Amazing Rich Life of Abundance. There's a cultish vibe to this community. You cannot deny that. People that, I forgot his name, I did a video on him, how the divine told him to have sex with another woman and procreate with her. He has a wife, by the way. And all of his followers just soaked it up like Neanderthals. So get ready, grab yourself a cup of tea or a coffee or whatever you drink. Sit down, get cozy, because I'm about to deliver. Based on my research, I have some comprehensive information to share on how manifestation practices can actually turn into spiritual psychosis, especially for people with mental health vulnerabilities and unresolved trauma. So let me provide a thorough, clear understanding of this. How manifestation practices can lead to spiritual psychosis and the dark side of positive thinking. The interaction between manifestation culture and mental health is far more dangerous than most people realize, especially for individuals with pre-existing mental health conditions or unresolved trauma. So what begins as a hopeful, positive thinking can actually spiral into spiritual psychosis, a state where spiritual beliefs become so intense they distort perception and reality. Spiritual psychosis occurs when spiritual beliefs or experiences become so overwhelming that they cause a person to lose touch with reality. According to mental health professionals, the key difference between a healthy spiritual experience and a psychosis lies in functionality and insight. During a spiritual crisis, people maintain self-awareness and remain grounded. In a psychotic state, however, there's a lot of insight, confusion about identity, and inability to distinguish between internal thoughts and external reality. The people experiencing trauma, mental health struggles, or life crises are particularly drawn to manifestation practices because they promise control in an uncontrollable world. Google searches for manifesting increased by 669% between April and July of 2020, a period when people felt especially powerless during the pandemic. So why is this problematic? Well, the law of attraction and similar manifestation practices teach that thoughts directly control reality. For someone with anxiety, depression, OCD, and emerging psychotic symptoms, this belief system can be catastrophically harmful. So, how manifestation triggers a mental health crisis? Well, thought-action fusion. The psychological concept of thought-action fusion, the belief that thoughts can cause things to happen, is virtually identical to manifestation philosophy. Research shows this is a significant risk factor for anxiety disorders, OCD, depression, eating disorders, and psychotic disorders. So when people with these vulnerabilities engage in manifestation, they may develop increasingly delusional thinking patterns that blur the line between thoughts and reality. The second thing is toxic positivity, emotional suppression. Manifestation culture demands constant positive thinking, creating what experts call the toxic positivity. This forces people to invalidate their genuine emotions, suppressing painful or difficult feelings. Suppressing negative emotions actually increases negative thinking and can exacerbate health conditions. For trauma survivors, this is particularly damaging. When told to just think positive, about their trauma, they're being asked to bypass the necessary grief, anger, and processing required for genuine healing. The third thing is spiritual bypassing, is the tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. Dr. Kress, a trauma psychologist, explains that traditional manifestation teachings can actually trigger or exacerbate mental health symptoms when not taught in trauma sensitive ways. So, common signs of spiritual bypassing in manifestation culture is believing traumatic events happened for a reason or were lessons, blaming yourself for not manifesting positive outcomes, avoiding anger and other negative emotions, feeling spiritually superior for manifesting positivity, and using affirmations to avoid processing real pain. The fourth thing is self-blame and victim blaming. One of the most insidious aspects of manifestation culture is its attribution model. If you create your reality through thoughts, then everything bad that happens is your fault. As noted by Psychology Today, this leads to devastating self blame. When someone with depression can't manifest happiness, they conclude their thoughts were wrong. When trauma survivors can't attract safety, they believe they somehow caused their own abuse. This victim blaming extends to serious issues, like people with chronic illness are told they manifested their disease through negative thinking. Abuse survivors are blamed for not behave or having better vibrations. And those facing systemic oppression are told to just think more positive. Particularly dangerous for people with specific conditions like OCD. Research shows that people with OCD are especially vulnerable to manifestation beliefs because they already struggle with magical thinking. The belief that thoughts can make bad things happen just make it worse. Manifestation culture validates and amplifies this dysfunctional thinking pattern, making OCD symptoms worse and reinforcing the compulsive rituals meant to ward off negative manifestations. During manic episodes, people already experience grandiose thinking, like racing thoughts and distorted perceptions of their own power. Manifestation culture can fuel manic delusions, encouraging beliefs like, I have supernatural powers to control reality, or the universe is sending me special messages, or I'm chosen for divine mission. One mental health advocate shared how during their manic psychotic episode, they believed that they were receiving messages through the radio and had found some profound significance in the random text. Classical symptoms that manifestation culture would frame as clairaudience or spiritual gifts rather than psychosis. Schizophrenia, another one, perhaps most dangerously. Manifestation communities often reframe psychotic symptoms as spiritual abilities, a disturbing example detailed by a mental health advocate had showed how signs of clairaudience listed in spiritual communities were actually textbook symptoms for schizophrenia. Hearing voices internally, externally, believing messages on the radio were meant specifically for you, finding profound personal words on a page, hearing unexplained sounds, extensive mind chatter that feels separate from oneself. Be quiet, kids! When these symptoms are validated as psychotic abilities rather than signs of mental illness requiring treatment, vulnerable people may delay or refuse psychiatric care, have their delusions reinforced or worsened, experience deeper psychotic breaks, become targets for manipulation by spiritual mentors or religions. For people with unresolved trauma, manifestation practices are particularly harmful because trauma already distorts reality perception. Trauma impacts the nervous system, keeping people in survival mode. This affects self-esteem, self-worth, the ability to be optimistic or hopeful, motivation and goal setting, trust in others and trust in the world. Manifestation practices don't address these neurobiological realities. They simply tell trauma survivors to think better thoughts, also bypassing necessary grief and processing. Trauma healing requires moving through difficult emotions, not around them. Manifestation culture's insistence on positivity prevents the necessary processing of grief over what we lost, anger at perpetrators, fear and hypervigilance that need to be safely discharged, shame that needs to be metabolized. Truly, when trauma survivors invest energy in manifestation practices, they inevitably fail to produce promised results. They experience re-traumatization, and the failure confirms that their deepest fear, that they're broken, unworthy, or fundamentally flawed. Psychology Today notes that manifestation culture operates with occult-like mechanics. Blame the victim. When manifestation doesn't work, you're told you were not pure enough. You didn't believe hard enough. Isolation. Doubters are labeled dream stealers and cut off. Exploitation. Vulnerable people are sold courses and books and coaching, promising they can become millionaires. Magical thinking. Belief in God, like powers to control reality. Authority worship. Charismatic leaders claim special knowledge. Real life example is a person shared how their spiritual mentor, who had a psychology background, manipulated their understanding of their dissociative disorder symptoms, claiming hallucinations and inner world experiences were supernatural abilities. And when the mentor abandoned them, it contributed to the psychiatric hospitalization that they had to do next. The solution isn't to abandon spirituality, it's to practice it responsibly and with trauma-informed awareness. So, acknowledge emotions aren't good or bad. They all serve a purpose. Recognize you don't control everything, and that's okay. Set intentions, not magical actions, and focus on what you can actually control. Seek professional help for mental health symptoms, or do shadow work. Process trauma before attempting manifestation practices. Maintain reality testing if beliefs isolate you or cause distress. Seek support. Trauma-informed approaches to manifestation emphasize understanding how trauma impacts your nervous system, releasing self-blame, recognizing systemic barriers and privilege, regulating emotions before visualization. The bottom line, manifestation culture's promise of control is seductive, but for people with mental health vulnerabilities or unresolved trauma, it could be a pathway to spiritual psychosis. The belief that thoughts directly control reality can validate delusional thinking in people with chronic disorders, can worsen OCD by reinforcing thought-action fusion, fuel manic episodes with grandiose beliefs, prevent trauma processing through toxic positivity, and create secondary trauma through inevitable failure and self-blame. One researcher noted the more positively people dream about the future, the better they feel at the moment. But you need the energy to implement your wishes. And over time, they actually get more depressed, partly because they're putting in less effort and have less success. If you're struggling with mental health issues and have been drawn to manifestation practices, please seek your support from a mental health professional or a spiritualist who can help you distinguish between healthy intention setting and harmful magical thinking. Your thoughts didn't cause your trauma. Your illness isn't your fault. The healing requires more than positive vibes. It requires compassionate, evidence-based care that honors your real experiences. Biggest thing that works more than anything that I've noticed is shadow work. I am not a big supporter for psychologists. Sometimes they could be a very negative thing because of the medication that they will prescribe, which cause a lot of damage with side effects. I would highly pursue a therapist, a spiritual therapist that can show you how to do shadow work to find that healing before you attempt to do manifestation practices. You need to come to the table with a pure, clean, slated thought process. And by pure, I'm not saying perfect. I'm meaning a clean slate, one that is not going to be influenced by trauma, past pain, etc. That will immediately affect your manifestation. And the magic that you so desperately are looking for will simply not occur because of it. I hope that was helpful. I know not everybody's going to agree with it. I'm a realistic spiritualist, so this is just my forte. If you don't like that kind of conversation, keep scrolling.